Okay, so now we're going to look into the next subtopic uh, from the third chapter, that is Manchester comes to India. Okay, let's read the first line here. So in 1772, Henry Patula, he was a company official, and he had actually said that the demand for the Indian textiles could never reduce since no other nation produced goods of the same quality. All right, so it was earlier it was speculated that Indian textile, yeah, Indian जुन चाहिँ cotton and जुन चाहिँ silk छ, that is of the finest quality. It's never going, its demand in the market, in the international market, is never going to reduce. Okay, so this is how the people had they had made an assumption. Okay, but here you will find out that the beginning of 19th century, the long decline of textile exports from India began. So 19th century के beginning देखि चाहिँ what we observed was that the textile exports from India जुन चाहिँ हुँदैन, जुन चाहिँ reduce हुँदैन भनेको थियो, it started to decline by the beginning of the 19th century. So here we are going to read how it happened. So they've given a figure out here: 1811 to 1812, piece goods accounted 33% of India's export. That means India baro export hune. Okay, the clothes that were exported from India, it accounted to around 33%. All right, but if you come to 1850-51, this was reduced to only 3%. So you can figure it out from this data itself that the export चाहिँ एकदमै drastically fall भयो during the or in the beginning of the 19th century. So we're going to read the reasons why this export uh, of the Indian textile began to fall. So why did this happen and what were its implications? That's what we're going to cover here. So you know we all know that in the beginning, in the first chapters, we read that in the fact in England, the place where the Industrial Revolution first started, a number of cotton industries were coming up. Okay, so many cotton industries were developed there. Okay, so the industrial groups जुन चाहिँ छ त्यहाँको इङ्ल्यान्डको, they began to worry that अब अरू जग्गाबाट अरू कन्ट्रिजबाट कटनको सामान ल्याउनु थाल्यो भने चाहिँ दे विल बी अ लट अफ कम्पिटिसन इन द मार्केट एन्ड उनीहरूको प्रडक्ट्स के हुँदैन, सेल हुँदैन. सो द्याट वाज द फियर इन द माइन्ड अफ द इन्डस्ट्रियलिस्ट अफ इङ्ल्यान्ड. ओके, सो इङ्ल्यान्डको इन्डस्ट्रियल ग्रुप्सहरू चाहिँ उनीहरूको फियर थियो कि द्याट अब उनीहरूले बनाएको, उनीहरूको इन्डस्ट्रिजले बनाएको कटन जुन चाहिँ छ त्यो चाहिँ दे विल ह्याभ टु फेस अ टफ कम्पिटिसन विथ the cotton which is coming from other countries. Okay, just for example, India was exporting a lot of cotton to other countries, right? England a lot of because fine quality ko bhakole garदाखेरि इन्डियामा बनेको कटनको टेक्सटाइल्सहरू चाहिँ it was being taken to England. तर अब इङ्ल्यान्ड आफैले नै दे स्टार्टेड म्यानुफ्याक्चरिङ कटन भनेपछि देयर विल बी अ लट अफ कम्पिटिसन. सो द्याट वाज द फियर द्याट द इन्डस्ट्रियलिस्ट ह्याड इन इङ्ल्यान्ड. So they began to, this industrialists, they began to pressurize the government to impose import duties. Okay, so I've prepared a slide here. Let's see that. It will be easier for you. So export of the Indian textile decline भयो. किन decline भयो? The first reason is because the industrial groups, they began to pressurize the government to impose import duties on the cotton textiles. That means अब जति पनि cotton इङ्ल्यान्डमा बाहिरदेखि इम्पोर्ट हुँदैछ, अलराइट, सो त्यसमा के हुनुपर्छ, ड्युटिज ट्याक्सेस पे गर्नु लगाउनुपर्छ. द्याट वाज सजेस्टेड बाई द इन्डस्ट्रियल ग्रुप्स. ओके, सो अभियसली इफ दे पे द ट्याक्सेस पे गर्नु थाल्यो भने चाहिँ अटोमेटिकली मार्केटबाट कम्पिटिसन के हुन्छ, रिड्युस हुँदै जान्छ. द्याट इज वाट वाज एक्सपेक्टेड एन्ड द्याट्स वाट द इन्डस्ट्रियल ग्रुप्सहरूले प्रेसराइज गर्यो ब्रिटिस गभर्मेन्टलाई, द्याट ब्रिटेनमा आउने जति पनि कटन टेक्सटाइल्स छ अरू कन्ट्रिजबाट, all those cotton textiles मा चाहिँ duties लगाउनुपर्छ. Some kind of taxes has to be imposed on them. Okay, so that त्यो ट्याक्सेस आयो भने त्यो सामान के हुन्छ, obviously it will become expensive, त्यसको बायर्स हुँदैन मार्केटमा, एन्ड कतिजनाले एक्सपोर्टको त्यो ट्याक्सेस पे गर्नु परेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि दे विल नट डु द ट्रेड. द्याट वाज वाट इट वाज फेल्ट. ओके, र त्यो चाहिँ किन गर्यो भन्दाखेरि म्यान्चेस्टर गुड्स, नाउ म्यान्चेस्टर इज अ प्लेस इन इङ्ल्यान्ड वेयर मोस्ट अफ द फ्याक्ट्रिज वेयर कन्सन्ट्रेटेड, कटन टेक्सटाइल फ्याक्ट्रिज. ओके, सो वाट एभर गुड्स वेयर प्रड्युस इन म्यान्चेस्टर, so these Manchester goods will they will not face any competition in the market, र उनीहरूको सामान आरामसँगले सेल हुन सक्छ without any kind of competition भनेर चाहिँ. that is why the industrial groups pressurize the government to import duties on the cotton textiles. All right. So the next point again is the industrialist. What they did was this industrialists, they also persuaded the East India Company to sell the British goods in India. So अर्को चाहिँ उनीहरूको ब्रिटेनमा चाहिँ कम्पिटिसन फेस नगर्नु परोस् म्यान्चेस्टर गुड्सले. Okay, but Manchester goods say it should be sold in India also. That was also persuaded by the company officials. Okay, so at the same time, industrialists persuaded the East India Company to sell British manufacturers in the Indian markets as well. So in Indian market company, the clothes, the cotton textiles that were manufactured in Manchester, it should be sold in India also. Okay, that means unako market it should be outside England also. That was persuaded to the East India Company. So because of these two reasons, say what we saw is that the export of the Indian जुन चाहिँ textiles छ त्यो चाहिँ drastically के भयो reduced भयो in the beginning of the 19th century. So again there is a figure given out here. At the end of the 18th century there had been virtually no import of cotton piece goods in India. So 18th century मा हामीले केही पनि अरू countries cotton को सामान especially we never imported from other countries because India was self-sufficient. India was producing cotton textiles of its own. So there was no necessity to bring anything from outside. But if you see 1850 ma, cotton piece goods constituted over 31% of the value of the Indian imports. And by 1870, that figure was over 50%. That means 1870 someone say, by the time we reach 1870, the cotton piece goods that were coming from other countries, especially England, that constituted to around 50%. That means 50% cotton ko jun chai, clothes it was coming from Manchester, that is in England. Okay, so because of these two reasons, say we can say that the trade of or the export of the textiles from India declined in the beginning of the 19th century. Now, the other part of the question here is what were its implications? That means, how did this change, okay, in the early 19th century, यो जुन चाहिँ एक्सपोर्ट कोल्याप्स भएपछि चाहिँ how did it affect the cotton weavers? So that's what we are going to read now. So the cotton weavers in India, they had to face two main problems. So again, let's see the slide here. I've prepared a slide here. So there were two main problems that the people had to face. The cotton weavers, especially the cloth weavers, the cloth making people had to face. So one is export market collapse. That means earlier they were making these things, and there were exporters who were taking these things to other countries and selling it. सो तर अब चाहिँ के भएन उनीहरूको एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट उनीहरूको के भयो कोल्याप्स भयो बिकज द एक्सपोर्टर्स ह्याड टु पे लट अफ ट्याक्सेस उनीहरूले यो सामानहरू बाहिर लगेर इन्टरनेसनल मार्केटमा सेल गर्नु मानेन सो द विभर्सको के भयो एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट के भयो कोल्याप्स भयो ओके नट ओन्ली द्याट उनीहरूको लोकल मार्केट पनि स्ट्राङ भयो द्याट मिन्स इन इन्डिया अल्सो विदिन देयर ओन कन्ट्री अल्सो उनीहरूको मार्केट के हुँदै गयो श्रिङ्क हुँदै गयो भनेको कम्ती हुँदै गयो बिकज देवर अ लट अफ म्यान्चेस्टर गुड्स द्याट वे फ्लडेड इन द इन्डियन मार्केट्स विच वे भेरी भेरी चिप दिस मसिन म्यान्चेस्टरमा बनेको सामानहरू त मसिनले बनेको थियो दे वेयर मच मोर चिपर देन द ह्यान्डमेड्स गुड द्याट वेयर प्रड्युस बाई द कटन विभर्स है ह्यान्डमेड गुड्स आर मोर एक्सपेन्सिभ whereas machine made goods they are much more cheaper. So since Indian market ma now agi 50% भनेर भन्दैछ नि हैन 50% cotton piece goods India ma बाहिरबाट आउँदै थियो भनेपछि these machine made goods were coming to India which were much more cheaper, okay, than the handmade goods that were made by the cotton weavers of India. So त्यसले गर्दाखेरि locally पनि within India also cotton weaversहरूले Manchester goods सँग compete गर्नु पर्यो र त्यो competition मा they were far behind because machine made goods were much more cheaper and people preferred the cheap materials. Okay, so this is how the cotton weavers had to face two problems. One is the export market collapsed and the other one is the local market shrank. Okay, then by 1860s अर्को प्रब्लम पनि एड भयो एन्ड द्याट वाज द सर्टेज अफ र मटेरियल्स नाउ कटनको कपडा बनाउनुको लागि द र मटेरियल इज अभियसली द कटन राइट तर सर्टेज अफ र मटेरियल्स वाज फेल्ट इन 1860s द्याट मिन्स कटन विभर्सहरूले अब कटन टेक्सटाइल या कपडा बनाउनुको लागि कटनै उनीहरूले एज अ र मटेरियल नै उनीहरूले पाउनु इट वाज भेरी भेरी डिफिकल्ट Okay, किन भन्दाखेरि the raw cotton that was produced in India, it was all taken to Britain to feed the British industries. Okay, so all of the sudden why this happened is because if you read this page here, you will see that US ma, now we have read earlier that America was a colony of the British, right? So when the American Civil War broke out, American Civil War ब्रेकआउट हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ के भयो भन्दाखेरि युएसले आफ्नो जति पनि कटन सप्लाई छ जुन चाहिँ ब्रिटेनलाई गरिदियो त्यो के गरिदियो कट अफ गरिदियो. सो नाउ ब्रिटेनमा दे स्टार्टेड फेसिङ दिस प्रब्लम अफ र कटन. उनीहरूकोमा र कटन पहिला अमेरिकाबाट जान्थ्यो, बट सिभिल वारले गर्दाखेरि अमेरिकाले उनीहरूलाई र कटन प्रोभाइड गरेन. सो नाउ ब्रिटेनले के गर्यो, दे सिफ्टेड देयर फोकस टु इन्डिया. सो वाट एभर र कटन वाज प्रड्युस्ड इन इन्डिया, द्याट वाज अल एक्सपोर्टेड फ्रम इन्डिया टु ब्रिटेन टु फिड द ब्रिटिस इन्डस्ट्रिज देयर. ओके, सो त्यसले गर्दाखेरि विभर्सहरूले अब र कटन पाउनु नै उनीहरूलाई के भयो, डिफिकल्ट भयो. एन्ड वेन द र मटेरियल इज नट देयर, उनीहरूलाई गुड्स प्रड्युस गर्नु, इट वाज भेरी भेरी डिफिकल्ट. एन्ड इभन इफ द र मटेरियल्स वर अभाइलेबल, द प्राइजेस वर एक्जोर्बिटेन्ट. भनेको द प्राइजेस अफ द र कटन वाज भेरी भेरी हाई, सो बिकज अफ विच द विभर्स कुड नट बाई इट एन्ड म्यानुफ्याक्चर फर्दर. Alright, then by 19th century we see there is another problem that added up. Okay, so we've already discussed about the three problems. Now there was a fourth problem that came up. Okay, the fourth problem चाहिँ के थियो भन्दाखेरि, now इन्डियामा पनि ब्रिटिसर्सहरूले फ्याक्ट्रिजहरू सेटअप गर्यो. ओके, र त्यो फ्याक्ट्री सेटअप गर्दाखेरि नाउ फ्याक्ट्री मेड सामानहरू चाहिँ इट फ्लडेड द इन्डियन मार्केट्स. ओके, मसिन मेड गुड्स वेयर इजिली नाउ अभाइलेबल इन द इन्डियन मार्केट. सो त्यसले गर्दाखेरि विभर्सहरूलाई त्यो इजिली अभाइलेबल, एकदमै चिप प्राइजेसमा अभाइलेबल मसिन मेड गुड्सहरूसँग कम्पिट गर्नु चाहिँ इट बिकेम भेरी भेरी डिफिकल्ट. सो फर द सर्भाइभल अफ द विभर्स, द क्राफ्ट, उनीहरूको ह्यान्डिक्राफ्ट जुन चाहिँ छ, इट बिकेम भेरी भेरी डिफिकल्ट during this period. Okay, so that's the topic for today.